This podcast contains content that is graphic in nature and mature language that may be unsuitable for children or young listeners. Listener discretion is advised. 26 years ago, a beautiful 34-year-old divorcee went missing and was never seen alive again. After almost 3 decades of investigation, a TV series, and scores of DNA testing and questions, there is still no real answer. So come with us today as we discuss this harrowing mystery of Eugenie Boisfontaine on today's episode of Sin Law. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Sin Law. I'm Kelly.
And I'm the uncle of the Unsolved.
Uncle Sawyer's back! Yay! And as you can tell from the intro and the title, this is another unsolved case that we're going to discuss today. And
the first mystery we're solving is, what did they score?
Who?
You said there were scores.
Scores?
In the introduction, you said there were scores.
Scores of DNA testing.
Yeah, what were the scores? What did they score?
475 years in the past.
That's 100 and...
So war with my beard.
4 would be 100. So
okay, no, but there was a literal... I would go with the the industry term of a shit ton. It's like a metric ton, but different. Okay.
No, you're thinking of it. It's a different one. I know what you're talking about. There's an actual... Yes, I know what you mean. The
industry term. Okay.
Yes.
So the case that we're going to do today, I don't think we have any housekeeping or anything. I did most of that on the last one.
Housekeeping? You ain't housekeep shit.
Yeah, huh?
Look at everything on the floor.
Well, on the floor, there's a blanket. Okay, moving on. So we're just going to jump right in. This case actually came to me by way of Sierra, a listener and friend of mine. She also referred the episode 3 case, the Mark Morris case, to me. So keep them coming, although this one was
just like I do.
This one was infuriating because there's not a whole lot of information out there about where they're at with the case or what kind of evidence there is, and there's not a whole lot of details because it's still an open investigation. So there's no appeal to look into, there's no autopsy there. I mean, like, all of that stuff is still, in the police custody. So I mean, like, they haven't released specifics. So
it's probably because they can't find any of the damn records with that name.
No. I think it's a beautiful name, Eugenie Boisfontaine. It's beautiful.
It sounds like the bad guy from whichever game that was.
There's
the Big
no drugs in here.
No, that's Bane. I'm talking Fontaine Fisheries.
Okay.
BioShock.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. I didn't even think of that. Really, really good reference there. Okay, so...
Her first name literally looks like Eugene.
Yeah, and I actually have heard another pronunciation of it was Eugenie. But
not a genie.
So they have
I will grant your wishes, though.
They have a series on Discovery that you can get from the Discovery Plus app. It's called The Killing Fields. It's season 1. And the entire season 1 is about the main detective coming back out of retirement to work the case again. And because of the advances in DNA technology and things like that, they've did a lot of new testing and things like that on old evidence that they had from the case. So on the series. He
failed to solve it the first time.
Yeah.
And then he came out of retirement to try it a second time, and then they made a TV series about him failing the second time.
That's an accurate summation, yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
But it was very interesting. And the detective, which we'll get to him here in a bit, but he is like the epitome of Louisiana. A lot of his, like, not technically investigating when they're just talking to him. He's sitting in like a tank top, drinking a beer, smoking in the middle of the swamp on his back porch. Like, okay, it's great.
That was the first image I came up with, and then the second one was a dude in a crawfish suit.
Well, that never happens.
With like 3 teeth. And he was related to us.
And this is actually a new area for us as well, because this is not central or northeast or northwest Louisiana. This is actually...
Don't tell me it's south of I-10.
I don't know where I-10is.
How do you not know where
Is that straight across through...
Yes, that's straight across, Kelly.
Yes?
Is it in South Louisiana?
Yes. Okay. So as I said in the intro, this case is over or around 26 years old from the time that she was initially reported missing to now. It's in Iberville Parish, and like I said, it's outside of our normal scope. And despite numerous efforts and an entire series, like I said, covering the cold case investigation, it's still up in the air. And the reason that we're going to cover this is just, we're going to give it the very basic details of what I could find and just trying to get it a little bit more attention, and maybe somebody will hear this, and I doubt it, but you never know. You never know. Somebody might hear it and remember something. It might jog somebody's memory. So we're actually going back to a couple years after you were born, or a few, I should say, August 7th of 1997. In Iberville Parish. Mm-hmm.
Kelly.
That's 4 years. It's different.
That's two couples.
That's why I said a few. Okay, so August 7th, 1997, the population in 97 in Iberville Parish was around 32,000. It's slightly lower now, but it's maintained just about the same.
At least by one.
Rude. Now, we're going to give you a little bit of background about Eugenie herself. She was born on February 9th, 1963 in New Orleans, which made her 34 years old at the time of these events. She was born to Curtis and Suzanne Boisfontaine, and they were a very wealthy family out of Baton Rouge. And
hey, why they got normal names? Was she black?
No. Why is it always about people being black with you?
I know.
So
I gotta ask questions. I'm trying to paint a picture here.
Okay, they're all white.
You can't paint a picture with no colors.
Hang on, I'll show you a picture. Very wealthy family out of Baton Rouge. So she came from a family of means. She actually didn't get married until she was 27, which is, for back then, seems like a little bit older, honestly.
How old are you, Kelly?
I'm not getting married. It's different. So at age 27, she married Michael Schmidt in 1990, but the couple never had any children, and they divorced in 95. What?
Oh, I was just laughing because I heard in my head, it's a choice to not get married. Yeah, but not your choice.
So they divorced in 1995, a divorce which was finalized only 10 months prior to her disappearance. She was currently living alone on Stanford Avenue, which was a very short walk to the shores of the LSU lake. So she was right there near the LSU campus.
Okay, so quick question. Did old boy come from money?
I don't know for sure, honestly. I don't think they mentioned that.
You said they were a wealthy family, right?
Their family was very wealthy, yes.
So she had buku bucks.
But she didn't... Okay, we'll get into that. I'm going to mention that in a second. She didn't file for divorce. He did.
Right, which
he
means... He
left her. And he was married within a month of their divorce being finalized to someone else.
Yeah, so flip the script. You cheating on old girl while she giving you lots of money and having a lavish lifestyle.
Okay.
Instead of a girl doing it to a dude.
You're making great postulations already, and I'm really impressed because that actually comes into play later. Let me get there, okay? Let me get there.
Well, hurry up.
Okay, I'm
trying. I got shit to do today.
I'm trying. So she lived nearby on the campus. She lived right within walking distance of the LSU lakes, which she often went by to go on like a daily jog. Eugenie had herself recently graduated from LSU. So post-divorce, she had graduated and was beginning a new chapter in her life as a divorcee. And according to the people that knew her best, she had a generally positive outlook for the future. Now, the only thing with that was that they said that she had a generally positive outlook, but they also said that she had changed since the divorce. Okay? Detectives at the time believed that Eugenie had gone missing while she was out for a run around the lakes in June of 1997. The last time she was seen alive by anyone was on June 13th, 1997. The investigators on the case believe that someone attacked her while she was on her usual run around the lakes, and 2 days after being reported missing, her credit card, ID, and other valuables were found near a light pole on one of the trails by the lake.
So 2 years after the divorce...
Well, technically it was about 10 months after it was finalized.
So it started in 95 and then it was finalized in 97. Mm-hmm. So they had to deal with each other.
Well, it was the end of 96, yeah.
So they had to deal with each other for like a year and a half.
Right, but the only thing with that was everything that I could find, it didn't say that it was a contentious divorce or anything. It was just Eugenie.
Why did it last a year and a half?
She didn't really want to get divorced.
Or she didn't want to give him all that money he was trying to get out of her.
Man, I don't think so. I honestly don't. Because it was her parents' money still. It wasn't her money yet.
Dude, inheritance.
No, I get it, but it's still...
Super motive.
Okay, so...
Especially if he was married again, not even before the divorce was finalized.
We'll get to the theories. We'll get there. So, lead investigators believe that this was the possible abduction location. This is where they believe that she was yoinked from. And the original investigator, his name was Rody Sanchez. He is like I said, he's the epitome of Louisiana Cajun Bayou. Like, everything that you can picture about someone from Louisiana, this guy is it.
And if you can help it, please try not to picture that.
It's great, though. You need to watch just like a snippet of him because it's wonderful.
But then don't judge the rest of us by that.
No, don't. Absolutely not. Because every stereotype that you can imagine fits into him, but that is not what we're all like, I promise. So he worked this case until he retired, and then he came back out of retirement, like I said, to work the case as a cold case in 2015. Now, Rhodey himself believes that she received a blow to her head while she was jogging on the trails, was knocked out, and then transported elsewhere. But they had left the stuff at that scene.
Were there not autopsies?
We don't have an actual autopsy. We just had the information. And a lot of the information that I got about what happened to her, and we'll get there, because remember, she has just been reported missing at the end of June. Okay.
So why are they still being stingy about all the details this long?
Well, what I can say about, because any open investigation, they're going to keep things close to the chest. This one being as old as it is and having a TV series about it, they give a little bit. But when you talk about like all of our other episodes, I can give dates, I can give time frames, I can give autopsy quotes because, they have all of that information. Generally, I can find it.
And show all of this, the haunting pictures of the murder and crime scenes.
Yeah, that stuff too. That's my point. So in this situation, because it's still unsolved and because they haven't released in total, like the entirety of the case file to the public.
It was the parents asking them not to release things.
No, maybe. It might have been.
They're rich white people.
It might have been.
They do what they want.
Yeah, maybe. So, getting back to where we were in this story, the ID and stuff were found by this trail, by the lakes.
By a lamppost.
By a light post, yes.
Lamp or light.
Whatever. Either way. Light pole. Whatever. And the only reason I know that specifically is because in the episode of The Killing Fields, he talks about putting up a poster on this light pole, and it wasn't just once or twice that he came back and it was gone. It was 6 or 7 different times that he put up a poster on that light pole and it was ripped down.
Cue visual feed. Oh, wait, this is a podcast.
This is a podcast. They don't give visuals. I don't even have an Instagram because I suck. So Rhodey makes a point to say in the Killing Fields episode that this was a very posh area. So, very affluent. It would be like shooting fish in a barrel is what he says on the episode. Because if your intention was to rob someone, this would be a wonderful place to come fishing. So he talks about for any potential abductor or robber, this would be easy money.
But to elaborate on your little analogy there, when you fish, usually you throw them back.
Right, but fish in a barrel.
Yeah, if you even fish in a barrel. That's a shooting fish in a barrel is a thing. If you're robbing somebody, you're not going to kill them.
Right, you're not going to take the body with you. You would take the stuff the credit card that was left, and that was my opinion too. So, despite back in 1997, despite massive search efforts and intensive investigation, Eugenie was not located for almost 2 months. Okay, when her body was eventually recovered on August 7th, from the time that she was reported missing on June, what was it? I know that the last time she was seen alive was the 13th, but I don't know the exact date.
Yeah, me either, because I have no information on this.
Right. Well, I don't think I have an exact date of when she was quote-unquote reported missing. I just know it was June of 1997, and the last time she was seen alive was the 13th. She was found on August 7th. Her body was eventually recovered 10 miles from where she was last seen alive in a place called Bayou Manchac. And there was a woman who lived nearby. Her name was Elizabeth Gomez. She was driving by with the windows down, kind of slow and just kind of, rolling through. It was a very rural area known only to the locals, and she smelled something that she knew was going to lead to something terrible, which makes more sense if you find out later in one of the episodes of The Killing Fields that she has a background in anthropology. And when she got to the body and saw it before she called the cops, just her initial opinion was there was no way that her body had been out there for the full 2 months, not in a bayou, not in the middle of the summer. That was just her opinion. And with her background in anthropology, it holds a little bit more weight than just a normal, I know what I'm talking about kind of person.
I was literally just about to ask if the body was in pieces or found in separate spots or anything like that.
Yep, we're about to get there. So she knows the animals in the area and bug life in the area because, like I said, she's in anthropology and the way the environment and the weather works in the bayou, and she believes that much more damage would have been done to the body. So, talking about the body, it was found battered and decomposing, leaning against the base of a tree. And Rhodey says she was extremely decomposed, but...
Mildly preserved?
Not mildly preserved, but she was...
Pristine?
Not pristine. The way that he...
I mean, as much as a dead body can be.
Right. And for the amount of decomposition that she had, she was still kind of all in one place, in one piece. So it was very decomposed, and they actually... It was like fragments and skull pieces and stuff that were already starting to kind of pile together. But...
Was there still skin on it?
Yes, and he actually states that when he began to put her body into a body bag, that the skin kind of sloughed off in his hand.
All right, so that was definitely... She was put in a freezer.
Well, maybe.
Or something cold.
Right, and that's another theory, yeah.
We've put multiple animals after killing them for
right.
food and whatnot.
Right.
If we didn't have time to properly clean and skin them, you put them in a freezer.
Right.
And then you don't use all of the animal, of course.
Right.
Like legs, the skull,
right.
all that stuff. You don't use that, but we also don't get rid of it because the dogs like the bones.
Well, yeah.
We utilize every piece of it.
If we can, yeah.
And when we keep a trophy, the skull will literally... That's what happens to the flesh. It just
slough. Well, they call it sloughing, and it happens a lot in water, more specifically. And it would make sense, but her body wasn't submerged or anything. But it had been out there for 2 months, so you're talking about the elements and everything else. So
freezing,
right? The freezing that makes it to where
moisture.
Well, it still
frozen.
does that even if you don't freeze the body.
I'm telling
can
you,
do that.
That exact stuff happens when you do that to an animal.
Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Even though they have fur and stuff, I mean, it's kind of the same.
Well, yeah, and so even as bad as it was, though, with the skin coming off and they're mostly decomposed, the body was mostly intact. The pathologists were actually able to recover DNA from her body, and even at the state that it was in, they detected no sexual trauma from what they could tell. And remember, this is in 97, so things have advanced since then. So from what they could tell, that doesn't mean there was no sexual assault, it's just no significant trauma from what they could find, from what they had available.
Which couldn't be much due to, if he touched her trying to put her in the body bag, she was falling apart.
Yeah.
No. How are you going to gauge if she was assaulted?
Well, you can, there's certain things, especially if there's still muscle tissue intact. If she still had skin covering her muscle tissue and there wasn't a lot of damage to that, then you could still see bruising and things on the muscle tissue after.
Like, who signs up for that job?
A lot of people go to college for years for that job.
Perverts.
All right, so... Although they couldn't say positively, the pathologist did list the cause of death as blunt force trauma to the back of the head, as that was really the only wound they could find because of the state of the body. And because of the state of the skin and everything else, they couldn't find any other. There were no bullet holes. There was no...
The state was Louisiana, Kelly.
Okay, you're cute. All right, so they also never found any murder weapon, but it was opined that it was likely a small hammer, and testing done later in 2015 seems to corroborate that assumption, although, like I said, never found any murder weapon.
It ain't the size of the tool, it's how you use it.
Right. Well, they actually did a really cool test on the killing fields where they took a pig's head, because their bones and stuff are similar in ours in structure, and they took different types of hammers, and they actually went back and... as part of the cold case investigation in 2015, they took one of those big, the readers, the deep ground penetration radar. They took those and went around and actually, I think those ones were metal detectors.
They are. They can get up to like 20 feet.
Right.
They're super fancy.
And they can set them up to where they
detect more than just metal. They detect any kind of
object.
Slight change in the sonograph.
Right. Well, and this one specifically was used to see if there was a large tool. Like it was really cool because it was only certain sizes, and they could change it to where it only noted those ones, which I thought was really interesting.
Those things cost about $10,000.
Yeah.
And that's what gold diggers use now. And they go over old gold digging sites.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
And literally they look for little fluctuations.
Yeah.
Soft spots, basically.
Yeah. Right. Any kind of disturbances in the ground where it would naturally have otherwise been not.
So if there's a whole area of nothing but hard rock and you see a little soft hole, 90% of the time it's going to be something special.
Right. Right. Well, then they use the same, the ground penetrating radar. They use those a lot of times when they're trying to see through like cement and concrete that has been poured for bodies, because it'll show up as like a blank spot where a body is because it's looking for, non-organic.
Are we still doing phrasing? Is that still a thing?
No, no, Archer. Okay, so note that this injury was the only one present and could have been the cause of death, but since there was so much decomp, it's hard to know that that's the only thing that she suffered from before she died. So, again, we don't have the autopsy because it's still an open investigation. And they're not going to release that stuff to the public. They probably likely won't ever. If they shared it with the family, they didn't share it with the public. So,
you want me to get it?
No. Now,
5 minutes.
Suspects back in 97 were slim to non-existent, but
I was like, how did you know their weight? Like, what the hell?
Rhodey actually talks about the fact that there was an active serial killer that was later convicted. He was active at the time in the same area and had even abducted, raped, murdered, and dumped 2 women on the same street as Eugenie that had actually lived like 2 or 3 houses down from her current address at that time.
So was this dude found out while she was alive?
No, but
or was he rumored? Was it said that somebody was doing that around the area to be careful?
Knew, yes, kind of.
So the community knew that trail had a couple of
not the trail
happening.
Specifically. He went to their houses. So the way and this
but he had dumped them there.
Not in Bayou Manchac. He had just dumped them in
the Bayou, where they found her stuff.
No. He had dumped their bodies in other swamps. So his MO was go to their house, kidnap them, rape them, strangle them, dump their body in a swamp. That was his MO. So he'd go to their house, pretend to be like an electrician or somebody from this water company or something, get inside their house, case the place. If they were alone, he'd kidnap them, rape them, murder them, and then go dump them in another swamp somewhere else in Louisiana. And he was all over Louisiana. His name was Derek Todd Lee. He's a very infamous...
He was well known.
He was an infamous serial killer in Louisiana at the time.
That's the correlation I'm looking for here.
Now, hold on. Hold that thought.
Damn it, Kelly. I'm trying to solve this before you tell it.
But he was later...
Let me be me.
He was later cleared by DNA testing in 2015.
No shit. I didn't think he did it. I'm saying someone that had known there was a serial killer doing shit.
No, for sure.
100%. It's like, oh, hey...
They might just blame it on this guy and I can get away with it. Yeah, but it's totally a possibility.
Especially if you a gold digger.
Yeah, okay.
And you already remarried.
The DNA that I'm referring to is DNA that was located in Eugenie's ripped underwear that was found at the scene on her body. And they say ripped because it wasn't just decomposed or it wasn't just broken down by the elements. You could actually see where it was pulled and ripped apart as opposed to just natural degradation. Now that we know what DNA is and RNA is, are we good?
No, we're not good. Because you still said I was wrong and I was right.
No, I said you were right. Okay, so...
You want some berry?
No, thank you. They found DNA...
Here's the mark.
In Eugenie's ripped underwear that was found on her body when her body was recovered. Now, in 1997, they couldn't test it, obviously. I mean, it was still in its infancy. And, of course, any kind of degraded sample... It was a lot harder to test than you had to have a large sample. You had to have, and you could only test it once. There was a lot of things that were limiting back in the late 90s.
So you have to wait for it to become 18 because if it's an infant, you can't test it.
That's enough. No, but
that's weird.
They found that DNA. They kept it safe and in police custody and kept it, in its original form to later be able to test it in 2015.
It was like an actual infant. They had to wait for it
to wait for it to mature. Yeah. Okay, so the testing showed more than one male DNA profile present, but it eliminated...
Was she secretly a guy?
Derek Tully. No, she was not. Oh. Okay. But... We'll get into the speculation because I have this whole section, speculation station. Okay, we're gonna get there because I have thoughts.
Really, Kelly,
that's really what I called it.
Speculation station.
You're right. That's because I wanted to make sure that that's all that's gonna be.
It's an in bold title of a paragraph.
Yes.
One section. Speculation station.
Yes, because from there on out, that's all that's gonna be. It's gonna be speculation.
Terrible.
I love it. You love it. The smile on your face says you love it.
Oh, I love it because of what the other phrases that I'm thinking of.
Okay, so let's get back to where we were. we know that Derek Todd Lee was the active serial killer at the time, but DNA later proved in 2015, because Brody had it in his head that Derek Todd Lee was responsible from the time he found the body in 1997.
Which is why he failed.
It might have been kind of side-roaded, but they could never find any evidence. And Derek Todd Lee, he admitted to the other ones. He never admitted to Eugenie. He said that it wasn't him.
But yes, embedding.
Well, they also kind of call it tunnel vision, but the embedding thing, I actually like that term.
Tunnel vision is just only seeing down a tunnel. Embedding is latching on to one thing that you're sure is fact.
Right.
And then
that's almost like confirmation bias, too, in a way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. You're not giving any other information a chance to even be looked at.
Right. So you're just sticking with...
So if you have a serial killer...
the first information you get, and
you have a
not focusing on everything else
serial killer in the area, and...
So, so that's a really good embedding. I've never heard of that. That's really interesting. So
really? Because you're always in bed.
Yeah, that's funny. All right. So during the episodes of The Killing Fields that they recorded in 2015, they hone in on multiple different leads following the statements of individuals close to the case. And unfortunately, everyone knew... or every new suspect that they uncovered, however shady, and there were quite a few that were hella shady on the episodes, they were all excluded by the DNA testing.
They were all executed?
No, excluded.
Aww.
So the case is still open 26 years later, and DNA ruled out the connection with the serial killer and all other plausible suspects, except...
Would you get your shit together?
Except one. So here is where the prior divorce... finalizing 10 months prior to her disappearance, that's where this comes into play. Okay? So, according to all the people that they talked to, her family, her sorority sisters, and people that were quote-unquote close to her, she was a very private person, which is another one of those things that makes this case really hard to investigate, and part of the reason why it's still unsolved today. Nobody really knew her daily in and outs. They didn't know, other than her jogging and stuff and things like that. She didn't really keep strong ties with anybody well enough for them to know who she was dating, or if she was seeing anybody regularly, or just who the new people coming in and out of her life may have been. So the one other suspect other than Derek Todd Lee, the serial killer, Brody believed that it might have been the ex-husband. Now, he had a solid alibi for the time that they believe that she had gone missing.
Which is almost impossible to determine because of the state of the body.
That's right. So, they can still say the last person to see her alive was on such a day, and then the next they know they found after she was reported missing 2 days later, they found her ID and stuff by the light pole on the trail by the lake. So they knew something had happened, but until they found her body, and even then they couldn't actually tell when she had been killed or when she had been dumped there or anything like that. It was just almost impossible to tell. So after they did all the DNA in 2015, the only DNA sample that could not be excluded, which isn't the same as saying it's a match, just that it couldn't be excluded as being one of the potential DNA profiles, was the ex-husband. So most of the episodes of the season of Killing Fields rotated around figuring out
definitive proof that someone didn't do it.
Well, that's the whole basis of an investigation, really, though, is that you exclude suspects until you find one that you can't, and then you go from there.
Right, and they excluded all of their previous ones except for the husband.
Right, and he's the only one that could not definitively be excluded. So moving on, back to the investigation. The production team of The Killing Fields focused in on the first season with basically following the ex-husband around and trying to either figure out that they could prove that he was or get more evidence that he wasn't. So nothing has ever been proven, and he has never been proven to have anything to do with her death or disappearance. Now, this could have something to do with the team of 3 to 4 lawyers he had around him at all times.
Now, how did he afford those lawyers?
He had his own money, is what
where?
I don't know. Probably his family. I don't know.
Bullshit. He got it from that divorce. I'm telling you.
Okay, well, I don't know if that's the truth. I couldn't find that. I couldn't find the divorce proceedings and record.
You think that rich-ass family would be like, yeah, our daughter got married, played, divorced, lost a shit ton of money.
And you think you would have heard about it by now, though?
No, you wouldn't
Unless
have.
they were that...
You also haven't heard anything else specifically about this case either. Coincidence?
Maybe. So the husband, ex-husband,
Aliens.
he lawyered up from the time she went missing in 97. And he has never, to this day, given an interview or a statement about anything other than to plead the fifth as far as his involvement. And he still swears through his lawyers to this day that he had nothing to do with it. And the season on Killing Fields, it actually ends with no conclusion. And as far as I can find, there hasn't been any breaks in the case since the season finale. Now, interesting, though, the way that they got his DNA to test it against the DNA sample that they got from Eugenie.
Prostitute.
No, actually.
Eugenie done that.
On the episode of Killing Fields, they followed him. They had detectives following him.
Got it off a cigarette or a glass?
No, actually. This is interesting.
Did one of them suck his dick?
No, my God. So he pulls into a grocery store. He leaves his truck outside locked.
I've seen that. I know
They pull up to the truck, go and swab the inside of his door handle.
That was a big deal.
It was a big deal, yes, because later he filed a civil suit against the production team because he said that they obtained his DNA illegally because that wasn't a normal, like, that was still his vehicle.
Which I agree with that 100%. That's
he lost.
bullshit.
It was dismissed. The case was dismissed. But I kind of agree to a certain extent. Like, you're parked in a public place, so I get that. But you can't go up and fuck with somebody's vehicle. Like any other time, that would be like if they had done some kind of damage to it, you know what I mean? They didn't, obviously, but in the same sense that's somebody's private property, you can't just go up and mess with somebody's private property.
It's like going up and swabbing somebody's doorknob.
It definitely shouldn't be admissible in court to use.
It probably wouldn't have been, but it might have given them enough of a probable cause if it had been an actual match. But the problem was, it simply didn't exclude him, but it may have just been the integrity of the sample. It might not have been a good enough sample to be able to include, or to say that it for sure was, or to fully exclude him.
Okay, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Because I just had a very weird thought.
Okay.
What was the time frame from when she disappeared between when he got remarried?
So their divorce was finalized 10 months prior to her disappearing. He remarried.
Did he remarry before her body was found?
Yes. Now, get this, though. Okay, so we can go straight into speculation station here because this is where we're on the same page a little bit on our thinking here. So the next interesting thing I have was, like I said, he married his new wife, who is also now his ex-wife. He married her less than a month after his divorce was finalized. So it was about 9 months that he had been married to his new wife when Eugenie went missing. Now, she had a child at the end of 96. Okay, before Eugenie went missing, and it was before, technically, she got pregnant before their divorce was finalized. But everybody that they talked to, and that was close to the case, said Eugenie and he had not been living as a married couple since 95. So their divorce they started the proceedings in 95. They hadn't been living as a married couple since then. And so him being with this other woman that he eventually married and having a child with her before the divorce was getting pregnant before the divorce was finalized was not really a huge deal. But maybe it's still something. So what I find to be my most interesting speculation of this whole thing is, again, this is all 100% my speculation, my just random thoughts that went through my head as I was researching this case. He divorced her.
Hang on.
Uh-huh.
Before you answer that.
Okay.
What if she couldn't have kids? They decided to get a surrogate. They ended up being like, "No, we done with you, girl. We don't need you." Going off with each other. And then there's resentment there. And then old girl has a baby and she's like, "Hey, this bitch, I think she's still trying to hook up with you. We need to get rid of her."
Excellent question. Excellent theory and a hypothesis of the possibility. And we don't know.
Because bitches be crazy.
They do. And which is the funny part about that, though, is my first part of my speculation station is maybe Eugenie. And
she was still fucking him on the side.
And that's where my head went. Because she was never over. She didn't want the divorce in the first place. She was still in love with him. And so maybe.
He got that stank, dude.
And everybody said that she was affected by the divorce and the proceedings, that it changed her.
Was that with an A or an E?
What?
You got affected.
A. So maybe she never got over him, and maybe she was still sleeping with him on the side. And even then, even if she was still dating and meeting and seeing, maybe sleeping with new people. So that would explain why his DNA was remember, because they found 2 male different DNA profiles in the sample that they got from her underwear. So the possibility in my head was that maybe she was still sleeping with her ex-husband, and maybe she was also sleeping with somebody new, or maybe she had just had a one-night stand, because, women can do that too. And maybe she was using that as a way to try to get over her ex, or just to, all of the things. There's all kinds of speculation that you can make, but that would explain the 2 DNA samples.
Could be another one. Tag team.
That's an option too. But
or he caught her with another one, and he was jelly.
Maybe. But in my mind,
in all likelihood, it was Man Bear Jew.
The biggest speculation I had, and the biggest thought that came to my mind was maybe
the redacted switcheroo.
Maybe they were still sleeping together on the side.
What did dinosaurs have to do with this?
Maybe Eugenie was still not over it and was really upset that because maybe he was still coming around. Maybe he was still, seeing her on the side, and maybe Eugenie was using that as like a bargaining piece. Like, hey, if you don't insert threat here, I'm going to tell your new wife.
Insert what? Where?
Okay. I'm going to tell your wife that we're sleeping together.
I don't even have a wife. What did I do?
And then things got out of hand, and maybe then he hit her over the head, dumped the body out of panic, and then to try to make it look like it had happened elsewhere, somewhere else, he took the contents from her wallet and threw it where he knew that she was known to run because he knew her, and he left it there to try to throw off investigators. Maybe that's what happened in that way. And, again, all speculation. I don't know. Because another thought is then, okay, well...
also, you could get DNA from underwear from a salesperson or a worker at a store.
No, I saw forensic files. Right. I saw forensic files one time where it was from the manufacturer. Yeah. Where they had been packing, one of the people who packed it into like a pack of 5.
Especially when you're working with such small and old technology and samples.
Older, yeah. Well, and see, and that's all of the things, all of the possibilities. So there's a couple of questions that I have. Where was she for the majority of the time she was missing? Because I don't see how her
freezer or cold area.
And I tend to agree with you. But then that also begs the question: who would have done that to her? Like, who had enough?
Someone who needed a present for his new wife
a random
and decided
robber,
it wasn't a good idea.
A random person coming to rob you and bonking you over the head while you're running is not going to throw you in a freezer and be like, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do."
Unless you realize afterwards that it's a high society member,
maybe
a very
once
rich
you see her
woman.
face on there. Well, but there was never any there was never any ransom request.
No.
Or
would you or would you not, if you were just randomly mugging somebody and it turned out to be someone super important, and they dead now because you bonked them on the head,
right?
Accident or not,
right?
Now you have, instead of just a regular citizen, you have a member of the hierarchy of society. Mm-hmm. So you're like, okay, shit. I'm going to go throw them in my deep freeze.
But I don't think people that are in that situation are going to be thinking that hard about it. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. Everybody acts different, and every person's going to react differently in different situations. I just don't feel like that's going to be something that the regular Joe Schmo that is literally robbing somebody, taking a jog. I don't see it. It's just not something I can get my mind around. So,
or that little dude that got all kinds of divorce money hired somebody to be like, hey, go bong her on the head, make her disappear for a little while.
I think his family had money, too. But anyway, 1997, how do we literally have no clue as to who she was communicating with or where she might have been hanging out with other than just random guesses? I get that she was a very private person, but it seems like it was
cell phones weren't that
phantom. No, they weren't, but still.
Privacy was an actual thing?
I don't know.
You could sleep with an entire...
Like, the closest people they could find to the case for, the guy who came and mowed her lawn twice a week or so.
That seems like a weird pairing of things to do.
Weird, right?
Climbing and mowing her lawn?
God, whatever. So, do you think that maybe it was just a robbery attempt that went wrong and that the single hit over her head killed her and then they dumped her? Or my biggest thing is I don't think that's
That's a run-on sentence, and you're.
I don't think that's what
rambling.
happened.
You're rambling.
I know.
Coherent thoughts.
The robbery, random hitting over the back of the head.
It wasn't a robbery.
I don't think it was either because they left the cards. If that was the case, then why would they?
Who is gonna be jogging in some fancy jewelry and shit?
It wasn't jewelry. It was just an ID, credit card.
No shit, Kelly. If they robbed something, it would have been something they were wearing and didn't leave behind.
I don't know.
So who goes jogging in anything robbery-worthy?
And see, that's another thing is I don't have enough information. I couldn't find what she was actually wearing when they found the body. I couldn't. Was she wearing running clothes? I don't know that either. It's just not information that I have. So the other one, the last question that I have is, why hasn't anyone come forward? Like, someone has to know something, or even if it's just something that might be random, that may or may not have something to do with the case, but wouldn't you rather give someone that information so that they could try to sort it out for themselves?
Nope.
I think it's so crazy, and it makes my head hurt, and it seems so well executed to either have been a huge mess up accident that turned out to be a perfect crime, or someone
was hired,
planned it so perfectly and it went off without a hitch. And those are the two options in my head. And the one person that kept his mouth shut, the one person that might know something, he's kept his mouth shut since she went missing in 97, and has surrounded himself by a team of lawyers to keep it from having to do anything other than that. Like, even the civil case that he brought up against them, he didn't, they didn't do any depositions or anything, and it was dismissed. So that just, everybody has a right to an attorney. Everybody has a right to keep their mouth shut. But especially in a situation where, like, almost 30 years have gone by and you still don't feel the need to comment or to tell people your side of what happened or what the story. I don't know.
You're probably going to want to edit this out, but, like, that's being smart.
No, I get it.
If you do some shit like that.
No, we talk about it all the time.
It's called Shut the Fuck Up Friday.
Yeah.
Because you shut the fuck up.
The only thing you should say is, I would like to speak with my attorney. Those are the only words that should come out of your mouth. We say it all the time. Not that we are trying to give anybody, tips on how to get away with shit or to better defend
where to
yourself.
send a couple $100K and get some shit done and never find out about it.
So a couple of the other podcasts that I went back and listened to see, because I was trying to find if anybody else could find more information, if there was anything out there that I missed, and there really isn't. I listened to a podcast for, it was called Text Law True Crime. She released an episode in 2020 about Eugenie, and there was also basically it was more of like a series, the Killing Field series recap by Charcuterie and Crime in 2022. And there's also an episode from a podcast called Nerdery and Murdery, and that was released in 2021. That is actually a really cool premise. They do, like, part of the episode is something super nerdy, like the episode of Eugenie is Stephen King, and the murdery part is the Eugenie Boisfontaine case. So I just thought that was a really cool premise, and I listened to those.
Stephen King's a murderer.
No, I don't think so. He murders those charts when he's selling all them bestsellers.
With my big, thick dick, but big bibliography.
Yeah, there we go.
I almost got it out.
So anyway.
Just like all his books.
But all of those shows, I couldn't find any other sources or information that they use that there was nothing. There just isn't a lot out there. So this is the best that I could do. It's still an open investigation. We can only hope that at some point DNA might be able to crack this one wide open, and maybe, the advancements as they continue to grow, that'll somehow be something that they can do in the future, because it sucks for that family, and it's heartbreaking because they still don't know who took their daughter away. And
it doesn't sound like she was all much that there anyways.
No, she was, but she just didn't tell people about her day-to-day personal life. It wasn't because they didn't love her, but the Iberville Parish Sheriff's Office still has, the open investigation. And
was she sleeping with them too?
I don't know, maybe. Please, anyone with information regarding this case, they're asked to call the IPSO at 225-687-3553.
That number is 225-687-3553.
You could be a telemarketer.
You're welcome.
So someone knows something, and whoever you are, the family and loved ones of Eugenie are still waiting and hoping for answers that maybe only you can provide.
But as I would, take them to the grave.
And I'm going to put all of that information in the show notes as well. So
here's a small note from our sponsors.
No, we don't have any sponsors.
And because people remember things more clearly when they hear them 3 times, that number is 225-687-3553.
Atta girl, you tried. You almost
rewind. But anyway, all of the information, all of the source notes that I have, they'll be in the show notes. Our Gmail is down there if you guys want to write us anything. If I messed up on any part of this, or if there's just some information that that I didn't cover, let me know. Or if you just want to make a case suggestion, throw that into our inbox and I'll get to it. Like I said, this was a listener suggestion from Sierra. Thank you again, Sierra. This one, like I said, was infuriating, but at the same time was super interesting. I had never heard of it, and I appreciate you giving me the information to be able to get this one covered on our podcast here, so keep them coming.
Yeah, case selection. I don't like Michelob.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
I'll take any other beer, though, any case.
We appreciate you guys listening. We'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Also, wait, what was the name of that other podcast?
Death by Southwest?
Death by Southwest. Yeah, whichever one's not married. I'm going to marry that one.
Okay.
Probably.
Hopefully not.
I don't know. Why not? I'm awesome.
You don't need to be married.
It's okay. We're all
Divorces are expensive.
I'm not getting divorced.
It's okay. We're all going to do it on Zoom.
Thank you for listening.
Why would we do it on Zoom? Who's watching that Zoom call?
We'll see you in a couple weeks.
That's disturbing. You're all skinny and...
Take care out there.
Doses.
This has been an Elf Audio production.